As soon as Hitler marched into Vienna, my mother started working right away to get us out of Austria. I was 13. We had to have our pictures taken and our names were changed. I couldn't be Lily. Girls had to be Sarah, and the boys had the typical Jewish name, Abraham, because you couldn't have a German name like everyone else. My mother immediately started writing people she knew who had settled in America, asking them to send an affidavit promising we would not be a burden to the United States. That was very difficult to come by at that time. In 1938, Americans were not wealthy. Luckily, there was an uncle that my mother remembered was in New York at the time, and she knew he had a business. She wrote to him, and he wrote back. He would be happy to send support papers to the men, my father and my uncle. He wouldn't sponsor the whole family because he thought they might not like it here. He thought that was so ridiculous. Here, people were worried that they would be taken to concentration camps. We didn't even know how bad they were then. Everybody got pneumonia. Isn't that amazing? The police would pick people up thinking they were being taken to the police station, but then ashes were sent home in a vase. They always seemed to die of pneumonia. My mother wrote to the uncle, and he said he wanted to take my father and my mother's brother, Benzion. My mother decided that would never work, so she sent him a letter. Since my mother couldn't write, I was the one who wrote the letter. She said Benzion had tuberculosis, and she didn't think he would pass the medical exam. Because of this, she suggested that she should receive the affidavit instead of Benzion. But I knew he was perfectly all right. Uncle Benzion was working and doing anything that any other man does. If she made it up, or whether she didn't know any better, I'll never know. All I know is that he was perfectly all right. When the letter was received, the uncle agreed it was best not to take Benzion. Instead, he would take my father and my oldest brother. But those two were the only ones. Without an affidavit, Benzion then fled to Italy. More and more containers were sent home with ashes. As soon as my father came to America, he started looking for people to sponsor my mother and me. We had lost all hope of ever leaving the prison we felt to be in. We had nothing to eat, and what little was available went to errands. As if this wasn't enough, we were then forced from our apartment. We sent a cable to father, asking to get us 2 tickets for an Italian ship. 3 long weeks passed before, with luck, we received tickets. Another terrible act was passed in that all non-citizen men were arrested and taken to Dachau and Buchenwald concentration camps, no longer to return. Because of the internment of these men, ship space was made available. We left at once and took a train for Genoa, Italy. Uncle Benzion had gone to Italy before us, where he stayed in Milan and was being helped by the Jewish Relief Committee. When the committee was shut down, he was left with nothing. He was then taken into custody by the Italian police. With no proof of income, he was ordered out of Italy. He decided to go to Genoa, and thus we were able to spend 2 days together. He looked in a terrible state. He had no money, and each night he slept somewhere else. We thought we could give him the $8 we had with us, but couldn't give him much. He had nothing to wear. He had sent all things to Paris, thinking of crossing the border into France, and then had nothing. We brought him a few things, but I tell you, he was in a terrible shape. You cannot imagine the sadness and how he cried as we embarked on our ship.